Namaste. Is it not rather absurd and ridiculous to worship a human being, that too living in flesh and blood as God incarnate? Former Naxalite Philip M. Prasad answers this question. His answer goes like this. This question hides within itself certain prejudices and preconceptions. It presupposes that the gulf between God and man is so wide and insurmountable as to make the two contradictory. Man cannot become God and God cannot become man is the preconception underlying this question. Truly, this cuts at the very root of all hitherto existing religions. Ramakrishna, Buddha, Christ, and Saurashtra moved about this good earth as human beings in flesh and blood during their sojourn on earth. All religions believe that God descends on earth as human beings to live among them, or that He sends His prophets who are from God and are godly. The difference between the God descending as man and the God sending His Son or prophet is razor thin. All the religions believe that man can transcend his impure existence and attain purity and reach out to become verily the God or become godly or godlike. The man ascending to godhood or prophethood or ultimate purity or his absolute merger into the whole are concepts common to all religions. So is the concept of descent also. Ascent from man to God and descent from God to man and its recurrent possibility, incidence, and probability are common to all theistic religions. Separation or the illusion of separation from the whole and the merger of the part or the bubble in the whole or the tearing apart of the illusory veil of separation from the whole and losing one's separate identity in the whole also points to nothing but ultimate unconditional surrender to the whole. This whole is represented by various shifting symbols or concepts from the Holy Ghost to spiritual master, guru or Rabbuni. In Tao, Buddhist and Sufi traditions, it is the ultimate surrender of our intellectual mind to the great masters. Surrender to, adoration for, and imitations of the infinite, immutable and formless in the human form of God or spiritual master is the common springboard from which the aspirant finally dives into the deep waters of spirituality in all religions. But when it comes to a new form, we raise in our minds all sorts of inhibitions, barriers, and prejudices, scuttling our own attempts at a lucid, effortless, and placid entry into the great waters of faith and surrender. Our struggle, sometimes too desperate with our own preconceptions, becomes too noisy, disturbing, and exhausting. We lose the joy and the spontaneity of this journey with our Master. Clouds of suspicion turn the whole canopy of this lake city into a rather dark and drenched affair without a breeze. Our friends and relatives, wife or husband, sons or daughters, who are themselves the victims of such preconcepts about worshipping a human being still living, strengthen the seeds of doubts in us, fanning it up at every opportunity they can seize upon, making our lives a constant struggle with them, our Swami, and his actions and inactions. A little difficulty in our lives, some wrong behavior pattern from any of Swami's devotees, a devotee is pestered and pounded by questions from all the four sides. Thus we lose our initiative and drive to go forward and take risk in our spiritual life. We are held up by doubting Thomases within ourselves and surrounding us. Buddha was worshipped even during his lifetime. So was Christ, as symbolized in his journey on the holy ass through the streets of Jerusalem. Devotees spread their own apparels so that the 4 feet of the ass bearing the Godhead can tread on them. Such was the hilarious, uninhibited ecstasy with which they worshipped Christ, even before his crucifixion and resurrection. And how can any Christian worth the name negate the tradition of worshipping a human being as God? Adoration and worship of the living God and ears and eyes attuned to feel the pulse of miracles was the Jewish tradition, is evident from the quickness with which the Jews in thousands turned to Christ within a short span of 3 years of his life and teaching among them. A bleeding woman was confident of getting a miraculous cure even by touching the hem of his robe. Such was the legacy of Jerusalem. Could Christ, who packed everything relevant in him to others, to a brief period of 3 years, have done something irrelevant or superficial and without a deeper meaning? Then what about his choice of an ass to carry him at the best of his moments? The ass could be the symbol of holy ignorance about which St. John of the Holy Cross speaks. Only holy ignorance can carry supreme knowledge. It symbolizes being a child again, being born again. A mind preoccupied with analytical processes could even be a hindrance or an obstacle to knowledge supreme and whole. Could it be that by riding an ass, Christ was teaching posterity that unlearning is the key to wisdom? Jews who did worship Christ riding on the ass while he was still alive and implicitly obeyed God, instructing them through dreams, as the story about the birth of Christ and John the Baptist proves, failed to extend the same logic to the present day. Similar is the case with the present day devotees of Krishna and Rama, who cannot tolerate the worship of a god in human form in the 20th century. Even some devotees of Shirdi Baba find it difficult to accept Satya Sai Baba simply because his form is human and he is still alive. The root of their non-acceptance stems from another factor. Those who have accepted one particular form as their own God form, worthy of worship, develop a closed-mindedness. Till Christ it is okay, but not beyond. Till Shirdi Baba it is well and good, but beyond that the road ends. Till Prophet Muhammad, the flow was continuous, and for each land and region and after him, the flow is abruptly snapped, and from now on, mankind is left to mend for itself without prophets. The love to one's Ishta Devata, or a god of one's own liking, solidifies to prevent its further flow and acts as a mental block, something like thrombosis, blood blocking itself. This narrow-mindedness too is age-old, and every avatar and every prophet from Krishna who was rejected because he was not Rama, and Christ who was not a Moses or Isa, had to first thrash out such mental blocks before they could get preliminary acceptance and start their work. Renovation is always rejected. The absolute fallacy of these prejudices is self-evident. But these prejudices, having dug deep into a cultural ethos, develop an emotional ferocity, and the rejection process of anything new becomes an emotionally surcharged process of irrationality and self-violence. As a result, the periodical acclimatization, reorientation, and rejuvenation of the eternal wisdom in the light of expanding horizons of worldly knowledge is denied a free flow. Spirituality degenerates into book worship, either of Gita, Upanishads, Bible, or the Quran. Rigidity and stagnation rule the roost. In his Vishak Buddha Paurnami speech on 36/1999, Bhagavan Sri Satya Sai Baba pointed to these dangers, and the continuous renewal of the eternal wisdom was reiterated by him. How can human beings as we are limit the freedom of God to descend to us or causate an ascension? The heavenly doors cannot be closed from outside. Once the Son or the Prophet or the Master has descended, and we mortals cannot be considered as so powerful as to imprison the God in his heavenly abode. And if the God too chooses rationally, the suitable form for his mission among human beings could be a human form. It could only be the more probable form. Brushing aside all such logical considerations, we stick to our prejudices and summary rejections. But blessed are those few who discern, recognize, and proclaim to the world that the God has come here and now. They may be gopis or rathas, or the monkeys of the South Indian forest. It can be ignorant fishermen of Palestine or the tribes of Arabia. But they were blessed. They fought along with the avatars, carried them over the shoulders, washed their feet with scented oil, wiped it with their own flowing hair, danced in love with the cowherd. So it goes, the unending glory of those who were fortunate enough to recognize and find themselves in love with God when He is alive. The innocent women of Shirdi joked with Baba, fed him with chapatis and puran boli, were in turn fed by him, quarrelled with him, nursed him, and many fortunate men had even the good luck of sleeping with him beside his bed, stroking his breast and cracking jokes till sleep overcame them. They are the blessed, the fortunate, and the few among millions. But they did it, facing the ridicule of the entire, the right-thinking world. They were dubbed as eccentrics, heretics, rebels, madcaps, and crazy people. But they persisted, overcame all the obstacles, and won this race of love. But a lazy mind, a tamasic mind, a sluggish mind is averse to taking risks. They have only one logic: play safe. Let the world at large accept first, and then I'll accept too. They're afraid of using their own powers of discrimination and find out through their own direct experience what is genuine and what is fake, what is real and what is mere fanciful imagination. Spiritual journey inherently involves a little bit of risk and adventure. But a tamasic mind refuses to take the risk of discriminating between a Krishna and a Paundraka Krishna, between God and an impostor. But those who dare to take the risk and succeed in their attempts of discrimination, their bliss knows no limits. Then there are people who wait till the departure of the avatar or the master from this world. They feel the risk is reduced because the master and his leelas are now complete. Nothing more to fear about a degeneration or a fall from the heights or the exposure as a fraud. Crafty people, intelligent people, but their cunning and playing safe will give them only photographs, statues, symbols, books, discourses, and stories, and in modern technocratic world, a few videographs and audiographs also to worship and adore. They will miss their living God. They can even build temples and worship with all the ritualistic formalities, but the good fortune, ecstasy and fragrance eternal of being a Radha or a Gopi, a Maria of Magdalene, a doubting Thomas or a Dasganu or Chandoka is not for these unfortunate souls. Reason and logic cram their muscles in this holy race and they fall down midway. But the asses, the Kalidasas, who surrender everything by cutting down the very branch on which they sit, get everything in a trice, in a moment, the most unpredictable manner, because they surrender their very security. We devotees are fortunate because we are already in this sporting adventure, and it is our epitome of love to humanity and cosmos to introduce the avatar to those who have not had chance to know and experience. And so to give the message of the avatarhood of Satya Sai Baba is the highest form of love to humanity. Namaste.